Now, I really hope this video doesn't get age restricted because no, the title is not clickbait and I don't want to have to change it. This is a very weird but very real part of Counter-Strike history, and especially seeing all the recent sticker controversy, it'd have been very interesting to see how Valve would have handled this whole situation. But just before we get into this weird story, don't forget to check out Skins Monkey at the link down below. Skins Monkey is an automated skins trading website where you can trade all those skins you don't even use for skins that you actually want. They also have a 30% and up to $5 bonus when you use my promo code NOSLEEP. They also run daily giveaways, so check out Skins Monkey at the link down below and get those skins you've always wanted. Now, when we head back to the ancient year of 2015, it was kind of the Wild West regarding Counter-Strike sponsorships. Not really a flying fuck was given about streamers and YouTubers working with unregulated CSGO gambling sites. So we had websites like CSGO Lounge, CSGO, EasySkins.com, all operating teams with their own name. And there was one particular adult website looking in from the outside and thinking, hey, you see how those gambling sites are getting the teenage boys to visit and become addicted to their website? Well, guess what? We could probably do that too. That adult website was YouPorn, and thus Team YP was created. They started their esports venture by signing a Spanish Dota team, and a few months later they'd sign a Smash player, and way down the line they'd sign a StarCraft player and ultimately an Overwatch team. But on November 13th, 2015, Team YP entered Counter-Strike by signing not just one, but two teams, a male team and a female team. And honestly, I kinda wanna know what the players told their friends and family, like, oh hey, we're employed by YouPorn now, but it's not what you think. So anyway, who were these players exactly? Well, at the time, these guys were probably just about as mid can get. In the months before Team YP signed them, they played under the name Enervate Gaming, as well as Team Phenomenon, but these guys were far from phenomenal. All of their competition was online, and they only ever played one LAN all year. They never won a qualifier, and they were making just pennies from the cash cups they were playing in. Like, looking at their results, I can't even really find anything to talk about. They truly were just your average Russian team. These kind of results continued after signing, but within a month, they were making some pretty decent roster moves by signing Davcost, Arch, and Kabikin. And the three players they brought in, they weren't just younger, but they also had more experience. Primarily Kabikin and Davcost, who had already played dozens of LANs, as well as 4 total majors with Na'Vi and Flipside. It'd take a few months for the roster changes to truly pay off, but they would do so massively. So as 2016 began, so did the major cycle for the upcoming MLG Columbus Major. Despite their less than mediocre results, Team YP found themselves invited to the Last Chance EU CIS qualifier, an 11-team event where the top 2 teams would go to Columbus and play in the major qualifier. Team YP was given a shot at qualifying for the major, but it was a long shot considering the fierce competition they had in front of them. The first game was against CSGO Lounge, which was definitely one of the top teams in this qualifier, as the Polish team was pretty regularly playing against Tier 2 and even sometimes Tier 1 competition. But somehow Team YP scraped by them with a 2-1 victory, and just like that, they were one win away from the major qualifier somehow. They just had to beat Team Ancient, which was a brand new team formed by Pronax, you know, that one guy that won 3 majors with Fnatic. Map 1 was a very close 16-14 victory for Team YP, but on Map 2, they just beat Team Ancient into the dust with a 16-0. And suddenly, just after 2 games, Team YouPorn was on their way to the MLG Columbus Major qualifier. The idea of Team YP stickers this whole time had been just a meme, but suddenly it became a very real possibility, and frankly the whole Counter-Strike scene would be watching. This was just frankly an average team with an infamous sponsor, so could they really make it to the biggest tournament of the year? And how would Valve react? Because Team YP's name nor their logo is inappropriate in any way, but it's no secret who's running and funding the org, and Valve surely would not want to be associated with that. Anyway, jumping forward to February, Team YP is getting ready to fly to America, but then just 9 days before the qualifier is set to start, tragedy struck. The visas for Sotfik and Dima One Shot were denied, meaning Team YP could only have 3 of their players at the qualifier. And if they wanted any shot of actually playing, they needed to figure out a solution fast. After some talking with MLG and CSGO Lounge, one of the teams they beat in the qualifier, it was decided that they'd be able to bring Innocent and Sparrow as replacements for their players. Playing with 2 replacements would be super difficult, but honestly they would probably just be happy to still be playing at all. Now jump forward to the start of the qualifier. Even with a full roster, it'd by no means be an easy path to the major. Team YP was coming in as the lowest ranked team, and their opening match would be against Mouse, who was a top 10 team at the time, and they of course had Nico. Cobblestone was selected to be the map, which looked pretty alright for YP. Cobblestone was a map that they never really banned, so they were probably pretty comfortable on it, but once the game started, there wasn't really many positive things to say about their game. YP would sometimes get the player advantage, but they always did a really great job at throwing it away, and the one time that Mouse did have to eco, they had no problem just wiping YP with pistols. Quite a few rounds came down to close 1v1s, but in the end Team YP could only score 1 round in the first half. Cobblestone could be an extremely one-sided map for either side, but even back then, coming back from a 14-1 was still basically impossible. Mouse made quick work of them, won the pistol, and then closed out the game 16-1. And now with this loss, Team YP would immediately have to play in the elimination match versus Team Liquid. And also to remind everybody, this was the Team Liquid that had just acquired Simple. They weren't ranked as high as Mouse, but they were just as scary, if not scarier. During the veto, it was decided that they played Overpass, and this spelled immediate trouble for Team YP. Train was always Team YP's first ban, but Overpass was just about always their second ban. During the veto, they decided to ban Dust 2, which was one of Liquid's better maps, and leaving Overpass alive in the veto cost them severely here, because they'd now have to play in a do or die on one of the maps they played the least. In the pistol round, it looked like the game might actually start in YP's favor, as they got a 4v2 advantage, but an ace clutch from Elise shut them down quickly. And from there, it was just a Team Liquid steamroll. At least in the loss versus Mouse, some of the rounds were close, but Liquid was absolutely dominating them, keeping at least 3 players alive in just about every round. It would be 11 rounds before Team YP finally got on the scoreboard. They'd later win a second round on an eco, but that is all they would accomplish here. Team Liquid continued dominating and they'd finish the half 13-2. They'd win the pistol again and quickly wrap up the game 16-2. And just like that, in just a few hours, Team YP was quickly eliminated from major contention, and Team Uporn stickers would continue to be a dream. So, what happened to Team YP after the major qualifier? Well, they returned home and continued playing in online events. That is, until April, when tournament organizer ESL made a very controversial decision. ESL announced that they would be banning Team YP from playing in all of their events due to their pornographic sponsor. And this was kind of an unprecedented situation. These days, it's not uncommon for tournament organizers to tell teams to cover, sponsors on their jerseys, but banning a team because of its funding is not something I think we ever saw before this. And like I said, this was a controversial announcement. ESL faced criticism for this because it seemed morally inconsistent with everything else in CSGO. Like, CSGO is a mature first-person shooter with teams and streamers and tournaments being funded by gambling and alcoholic sponsors. There is already many mature themes and addictive adult sponsors targeting minors in the game. So ESL drawing the line at pornography just seems a bit weird. And when you think about the argument that way, it makes sense. But on the other hand, it's like, dude, it's fucking porn. Can you blame a company for not wanting to be associated with porn? Because I don't think so. Anyway, Team YP had dropped both their male and their female teams shortly before this announcement, but this news would ensure that YP never returns to Counter-Strike, because what's the point of having a team if you're banned from the biggest tournament organizer? And now, to answer the question, did Team YP have a real shot at making the major? Because you're probably thinking, dude, they won 3 rounds in 2 maps, they had no shot, and you're just embellishing the title for the video. But I'd actually argue that they did indeed have a shot at qualifying, so let's look at it. Obviously, the biggest setback is going to be 2 of their players couldn't attend because their visas got denied. But what I didn't say earlier is that one of those players that got denied was actually their IGL. So when YP was looking for replacements, they weren't looking for just firepower, they were also looking for someone to take over the calling. And like I said, they brought in Sparrow and Innocent from the CSGO Lounge team. Sparrow was the IGL for Lounge, but instead of him calling for Team YP, it was actually Innocent, who had IGL'd for teams in the past, but he was still a very young player. This kind of inexperienced calling could be why we saw so many lost player advantages when they were playing Mouse. Something else worth mentioning is that when we look at the actual roster, historically, Davcost was far and away their best player, but when we look at the stats versus Mouse and Liquid, he was basically not even on the server. Like, he had 21 ADR versus Mouse. That's not even hitting 1 AK bullet per round. And seeing that those matches were just a few hours apart, I think it's fair to say that Davcost was having a very off day. And don't interpret this as me trying to put blame on Innocent or Davcost. I'm just trying to elaborate that not only were they missing 2 players, their best player was having a really bad day, and they were also under the leadership of a younger IGL from a totally different team, which is absolutely not easy for the IGL or for the players. And it's also not like I'm saying they would have qualified if they had their full team and were firing on all cylinders. Like, they had Nico and Simple in front of them, for fuck's sake. It was always going to be a hard battle. I'm just saying it would have been a closer battle. And we can actually see this when we look at what happened with the players after Team YP. After Team YP was dropped, Arch would go his own separate way, but the players brought Coldy back in, and they would actually be the first team that Team Spirit ever signed. And over the next few years, we can see how the team grew to be successful. Because just less than a year after their Team YP venture, they found themselves back in America playing in the qualifier for the Atlanta 2017 Major. But they were again hit by visa issues. And a year after that, they were playing in the CIS minor and were just 1 map away from qualifying for the Boston 2018 Major. Eventually, Team Spirit was able to break that glass ceiling by qualifying for the London 2018 Major and the subsequent Katowice 2019 Major, so we can see how the Team YP players were capable of qualifying for multiple majors with time. They were good players, they just weren't in their prime yet. If the YP org was allowed to stick around longer, it's certainly possible that we could have eventually gotten a Team YP sticker. Their path at the Columbus qualifier was never going to be easy, but because of the visa issues that plagued them, Team YP will always be one of the great what-ifs of Counter-Strike. And that is the end of the Team U-Point story. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you watching all the way through. These videos take a lot of time to make. Liking and subscribing helps me with making more videos like this, and again, thank you for watching.